I was 16 years old when I began preaching and telling others the good news of Jesus Christ. And at that age, I had one dream, which was just to be part of a church that was reaching thousands of people with the great news of Jesus' love for them. And so my dream was always to share God's word and share his heart with people. To that end, I went to Bible college, and because of my young experience, church I grew up in loved me, and because of my passion in Bible college, they loved me, and I graduated with honors and moved back to my wife's hometown, where I became an associate pastor at a small little church in the community. And the first couple years went pretty strong. And then I just sensed the Lord was saying, you need to put yourself in a position where you're going to be able to start a church. And so after 3 years at that church, I resigned in order to pursue what I knew the Lord was leading out to do in my life. He didn't tell me that it would be a 3-year wait. And so about 1.5 years, 2 years in, fortunately, a friend of mine had hired me to wash windows. I never washed windows growing up. And so my wife and I have 2 young kids, and I'm washing windows, just trying to scrape to get by. And one day I'm in this yard, and I've got my long extension pole, and I'm starting to think about my dream and how all I ever wanted to do was just preach and tell people about Jesus, and how the future in front of me looked as if that's not going to happen. And so I wondered, God, did I hear you? And worse, I wondered, God, did you put me on the bench? And I just started to long for the days past when I was back at that little church just trying to help out. And then the tears started to come. And then it was just a crushing lament. And I'm washing these windows, and all of a sudden I just collapse on my knees in the front yard of this house, and part of me's missing what was and wondering what will be, and another part of me is thinking, I hope the people who own this house don't look out and see me right now. You can imagine what that would be like, come running out. Did someone die? No. Did you break a window? No. Well, you streaked it, but you can do that over. What's wrong? I just want to be a minister. Like a prime minister? I mean, what are they going to do with that? You can imagine the scenario. So finally I composed myself and finished the window washing and wondered what God was going to do. Have you ever lost something that you loved? And how do you recover what was lost? Have you ever lost something that you loved? And how do you recover what was lost? The answer is found in a small book in the Old Testament written by the prophet Jeremiah called Lamentations. It's easy to overlook because it comes after his big book called Jeremiah. And Lamentations consists of 5 laments. The word lament means to grieve, to weep, to feel deeply. 5 laments over the destruction of Jerusalem. So here's what happened to catch you up. God's people disobeyed God. And he warned them, if you don't repent, you will be taken into captivity. They did not repent. They were taken into captivity. Jerusalem is destroyed. The temple is in ruins. And only a small remnant of people remain. And so they are lamenting what has been lost. See, when I was washing windows and thinking about everything I'd lost, ministry is what I had hooked my identity into. I was the golden boy of the church I grew up in. I was the golden boy of the Bible college I graduated from. And ministry was the place where I was experiencing God's favor. And ministry for me was a safe place. And maybe you can recognize things in your life where you've staked your identity to it. This is who I am. Or maybe it's been a time or a place where you just experienced the overflow of God's favor, and it felt safe to you and comfortable. And that's what had happened to Israel. Their identity as God's people, gone. The favor that they had by which they were triumphant and built up a kingdom in the promised land, gone. Safety, gone. And we know what it is to experience that. And so in Lamentations, all of a sudden, words start to show up like exiled and abandoned and betrayed. In one verse, Jeremiah says, "My eyes are weary, and I am in torment within." I'm in torment within. And then he talks about people who walked by Jerusalem at that time and said, "This was the city they called the perfection of beauty." And so you have a person who's feeling torment within and being taunted from without. Have you ever been there? You're feeling torn inside about what was. You're wondering what will be. You have people who remember what was, but they can't see what might be ahead. That's the context of Lamentations. How do you recover what was lost? Well, the answer shows up in chapter 3, verse 21, where Jeremiah begins with, "This I call to mind, and therefore I have hope." And so the road to fulfillment begins with the mind, a mindset, either a mindset of faith or a mindset of fear. Those are the mindsets that we have the options of possessing, faith or fear. And here's the thing that faith and fear have in common: a belief in something you cannot see. And so you can believe that if you ask that girl out, she's going to reject you. You can believe that if you confront your boss, he's going to punish you. You can believe that if you move to a new city and start up at a new church, that things will never be as you once knew them to be. You can believe this, but you don't know it because you can't see it yet. That's fear. Or you can believe that God works all things together for the good of those who He calls. And so your belief rests on God. And that's what Jeremiah came to. "I call to my mind this." And then he says these beautiful words: "Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed." We are not consumed by fear. We are not consumed by guilt. We're not consumed by shame. We're not consumed by regret. We're not consumed by disappointment. We're not consumed by disillusionment. We are not consumed because of the Lord's great love for us. And that word great love interprets a word that means covenant love. In other words, he brings his focus upon a God who has set his love for you. It is set. It is predetermined. It is established. He loves you. And there is no changing that. Because of his great love for you, there's nothing more you can do by which he'll love you more. There's nothing less you can do by which he would love you less. His love is set. Because of the Lord's great love for us, we are not consumed. And then Jeremiah says this about God: his mercies never fail. That word can be translated compassion. His mercies, his compassion never fail. And that word compassion speaks of, it relates to a word that speaks of the womb. And so you get two pictures in that. You get the picture of this depth of compassion that God has for you, this depth of mercy, this depth of love. But you also get the picture, we came out of the womb of God's creativity. We are born of God, created in his image, having the opportunity to be recreated and made new in Jesus Christ. You're the child that he loves. brought forth from his womb and loved at such depth. And so in the midst of Jeremiah looking around, and there's torment within, and there's taunts from without, he says, this is what I do. I set my mind on the covenant love of God and the compassion. And he says of this compassion two things. They never fail, and they're new every morning. Now that is really cool. That means that if you went to bed last night and you totally blew it, you woke up this morning to new mercy. That means if you have done something and you have wondered, is there any way that I'm going to be able to recover from this? You have woken up to new mercy every day. Every day. When you think you have finally pushed God's button and there's no way that he will set his face towards you with favor, every day it's new. Dave and I, years and years ago, after we started Bellevue Foursquare Church and went to Murmansk, Russia on a mission trip. And we were some of the first Americans allowed into the maximum security prison there. And so we get there the first day, and they lead us into where we're going to be holding this service for the inmates. And you would imagine in a maximum security prison in the heart of the Arctic in Russia, that where they bring all the prisoners together, they might have, warm tones to the paint and the floors and maybe pictures of Bambi. Something that just kind of calms the spirit. But we walk in and I look around, and it's this total display of war and violence, like something you pick off of a video game. And I'm looking around thinking, oh my gosh, there's nothing here to calm the spirit of these guys. And then the guards left the room. Oh, where are you going? Come back. But our team did, we did our thing, and Dave sang and I preached, and we gave the invitation for people to come and have a love relationship with Jesus Christ. And guys, it was a powerful time as they came forward, and these guys who live every day trying to protect themselves just overwhelmed with a heart for Jesus in this moment. And one guy said to me, I murdered 8 people. Can God forgive me? And the good news is, he woke up that day to new mercy. New mercy. And so when you are in this place where you have lost what you've loved, and you're just thinking, how do I recover that? Jeremiah brings our mindset not to the fear of what can happen, but to faith in the God whose love and compassion never fails. Now, when you believe that, belief has practices that follow. And so Jeremiah says, his mercies are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Because his love, his mercy is not based on your faithfulness, is it? It's based on his faithfulness, which never changes. Therefore, the Lord is my portion, he says, and I will seek him. The Lord is good to those whose hope is in him. And that word good that Jeremiah uses doesn't mean just kind. It talks about the will and the purpose of God being worked out in your life. So he's saying the purpose of God in your life is being worked out by those who hope in him and who wait. It is good, he says. It is the context of your life for God to work out what he has planned for you. It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. And it is good, he says, for a man to bear the yoke while he is young. So he talks about three practices: seek and wait and bear. And I want you to see the relationship between those, because when you set your mind on God, whose love for you is unfailing and his compassion and his mercy is new every day, there are three practices that must follow. And the idea of bear has to do with coming under the direction of. Sometimes it's associated with discipline, but it's the idea of coming under the direction of someone. And so Jeremiah says this in Lamentations: let us examine our ways and return to the Lord. And sometimes when you think of this phrase, let us examine our ways, all of a sudden you start doing the checklist of the 24 things that aren't going well in your life, and that's not what he's talking about. Let us examine our ways as literal. Examine the way you're headed. You're either headed away from the Lord, or you are headed with the Lord on the way to what he has for you. You're either headed away from the Lord, or you're headed with the Lord on the way to what he has for you. So when he talks about bear the yoke, he's talking about realizing the number of different ways in which one thing is true. You have walked away from what God has for you, so return to the Lord and seek him. Because those whose hope is in him seek him. Hope is the realization of your desire for more. And you do desire more. You desire more in your life, it's God-given. You desire more in your relationships, that's God-given. You desire more in the influence you have, the positive contribution you make in this world, that is God-given. Of desiring more. And sometimes when we have lost what we love, and we're feeling torment within, you want to go back to where you were. That's what happened to Israel when they were way back, when they were captive to Egypt, and God promised to bring them out, and he brings them out, and then they're wandering in the wilderness for years, and they start to complain and say, we just want to go back, because at least we had some daily food, and at least we had some routine that we're used to. Forgetting how horrible it was to be slaves, at least we want to go back. And they would be walking away, not with, on the way to what God had. And so we seek him. Sometimes I get in a place where I'm just so desperate. I want to feel again the good experiences and emotions I knew, that I'm tempted to go my own way. But it's interesting. The people that Jeremiah is speaking to were too stunned to hear the promises of God. But Jeremiah is talking to him. God whose love doesn't fail and God whose mercy is new has a plan for you. He has amazing things for you. And God would follow that encouragement up through another prophet called Haggai. And Haggai gathered around him people who looked upon the ruins of the temple and spoke on behalf of the Lord and said this: who of you still remains who saw this house in its former glory? How does it look to you now? Does it not seem like nothing to you? Have you ever been there? Been in a place in your life, looked upon your own life and thought, man, this is not what I thought I'd see coming. This is not what I had in mind. When I was growing up, one of our favorite programs in the house was MASH. Any of you remember MASH? Have any of you discovered MASH on TV Land reruns? channel 892 or whatever. It turns out that my dear friend Steve has the whole collection of the MASH series. And he was reminding me of one episode that involved Margaret Houlihan, Hot Lips Houlihan. I want you to pick up on a scene that happens with her.
I got a half a bran muffin going cheap. That was a very nice gesture. The cake, I mean. I'm sorry for what I said.
No problem.
I guess I just didn't want anybody feeling sorry for me. That was a pleasure I wanted to reserve all to myself.
Look, I know how you feel. One time I remember I was trying to get to Akron for the statewide bowling tourney. Well, all the buses were canceled on account of snow. So me and my cousin Adi... Okay, so I don't know how you feel.
There are so many things I was so sure I'd have in my life by now. And every Christmas, every birthday, all those milestones just remind me of what's still not there. And today turned out to be just another day in the middle of nowhere.
Today's just another day in the middle of nowhere. The prophet Haggai gathers all these people together and says, "Who of you saw this house in its former glory? What's it look like now? Looks like nothing. Looks like the middle of nowhere." And if you were part of that group, you'd be thinking, "Wow, I'm so glad I came to this party." But then he says this, the Lord says, "Be strong, all you people, and work. For I will fill this house with glory. My Spirit is among you. Do not fear. And the glory of this present house will be greater than the glory of the former. And the glory of this present house will be greater than the glory of the former. And you have in your life the God whose love does not fail, whose mercy is new every morning, who says to you, the house of your life, this present house, the future of this house will be greater than the glory of the former, because I am the God who leads to fulfillment. I am the God who brings increase. I am the God, based on my faithfulness, who brings favor. You and your household, the family and the friends that you hold in dear possession, the glory of this house, which I fill, will be greater than the glory of the former. And you who are gathered together, we gathered as a church, you gathered in groups and ministries and teams, the glory of this present house will be greater than the glory of the former, because our mind and faith is set upon God, whose love is set upon us, and whose mercy is new every morning. And now I'm glad I showed up for the party, because that's a message I need to hear, and that's a message you need to hear. Because the message is, how do you recover what was lost? You don't. You don't. Because God's not going there. God's moving forward. God is a God of forward. God is a God of fulfillment. Which brings us to the third practice. This great anticipation in your life of God who's moving forward, who says to you, let go. Don't try to recover what was lost. Press into what I have. And you're ready. You're ready to go. You're ready to be strong. You're ready to work. And he says, wait. Wait. In a short while, he said, I will fill this house with glory. Wait is both passive and active. As in passive, you need to wait your turn in line. As in active, someone who waits on you in a restaurant. And so when you read wait on the Lord, it's both passive and active. So you come to a recognition where God, in his timing, will do what he is going to do. But while you are there, you are in this place of frustration. And things keep coming at you, so that it's hard to wait. Because you continue to be distracted and your emotions torn. So in the series MASH, there's a particular episode where Colonel Potter catches some flack. And so someone in the camp had complained about him, and so his superiors were starting to pull cheap tricks like surprise inspections, and he was getting irritated because he served with a distinguished career, and he simply wants to help soldiers who are wounded and lead this MASH unit. And so in this episode, he's getting grumpy, and he's starting to snip and make life miserable for everyone around him. And it comes to this incredible moment, which I want you to catch right here.
What? Am I staying? I'll get back to you.
Are you staying, Colonel?
I must admit this is a load off my mind, but I haven't seen Mildred in a long time. It's been a long war. I passed my prime about 10 squares back.
Look, Colonel, Sherman, you could give me 100 good reasons to leave, and I can't give you one good reason to stay. Stay anyway.
And you will find yourself in a place God has brought you to this place, but things keep coming up, and there's 100 good reasons why you could go. It doesn't look like there's any good reason why you should stay. But you hear the Spirit of God say to you, stay anyway. Doesn't matter what you think other people will think. Doesn't matter the short-term relief you'd have if you took off. Stay anyway. Joel Osteen tells about a time when he was on vacation in Colorado, and he woke up one morning and decided to take a hike. And so the base elevation of where he was about 8,000 feet above sea level, and the summit where he was trying to get was about 11,000 feet, and there was a sign at the base that said it's going to take you about 3 hours. Well, he figured he was in pretty good shape, and so he just took off at a pretty quick pace, and he said about, the first 15 minutes was pretty good. The next 15 minutes, I'm thinking, I'm out of shape. He says, so I'm trying to pace myself, but by the next 15 minutes, like 45 minutes in, he said, I'm dying. My legs are on fire. My chest is pounding. I stop. I'm trying to gather myself and collect myself. I'm thinking, if I have 2 more hours to go, I'm never going to make it. And about that time, he said an older gentleman was coming down the pathway. And he looked at him, he looked at Joel, and he said, you are closer than you think. And then continued to walk on. And Joel said, just hearing those words, you are closer than you think, gave me my second wind. And so I took off at a pace up this steep incline. And 10 minutes later, I reached the summit. Back there, I thought I had another 2 hours to go and I was never going to make it. But all I needed to hear was from someone who has been there and said, you're closer than you think. And in your life, in your house of glory, your life, your family, this church, teams that you're a part of, this house, you're closer than you think. Let's see what Colonel Potter decided to do.
Well, I'll have to think about it for a while. I'll stay.
Thank you, Colonel. You regret every minute of it.
I probably will.
Uh-oh. Choppers. Ooh, they sound loaded.
Let's go.
Uh-oh. Choppers. And they sound loaded. Here's why God's saying to you today, you're closer than you think. You cannot go back. You must go forward. Here's why. Because in your house, there are people still to come. There are people who are in need of Jesus Christ. There are people who are in need of his healing. There are people who need to know the river of new life that Dave sang about. And they aren't back there. They're up ahead. More people still unknown to you. But God's already been there. And he's making their future promise a part of your present opportunity if you will stay and follow.
Great is thy faithfulness, O God.